right, you guys, welcome back to the honorable mention edition of the Diggie A2 podcast. We're paying homage to Dr. Dre's The Chronic. So what happened with The Chronic and not getting into the season was when I put these seasons together, there's just not enough room for certain individuals. However, there's certain pieces of art within hip hop that have to get its due. So when I looked at Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg in the season, I decided to fit Snoop Dogg into the season and left out Dr. Dre, only because Dr. Dre is a producer more so than an artist. So, however, this first major production in the time period of the shift between 1990 and 1994 was the masterpiece of The Chronic. The Chronic is a masterful album, you guys. Considered by most the greatest 62 minutes and 52 seconds in hip-hop history, depending upon who you ask. And I have brought in a couple of good buddies of mine to come in and have a conversation about The Chronic. I'm going to bring them in so you all can meet them real quick. So first off, we have my homeboy here in Kansas City, Mr. We Fit Sports himself, Tyrone, is in the building. And then I have a new guest that you all have not met yet, DJ Mr. Rodgee, representing the West Coast. And he's in here with us today also. So I'm going to bring in both these gentlemen. Tyrone, what's good, my homie? Talk to the people, man.
What's up? 2021, man.
Yes, hey. Sir. Happy New Year. Shout out to you, homie. Pour them up for you one time. Rodgee in the building. I need you to unmute yourself so the people can hear you, man. What's good, homie?
Hey, all good, man. Over here on the West Coast, man. Just trying to keep it going, just keeping it pushing for this year.
Yeah, living life, man. Hey, so for all that don't know DJ Rodgee is has a morning show called The Morning Mix. What's it called, Rodgee?
Yeah, the Morning Coffee Mix.
Morning Coffee Mix, yeah. So he does it spins the ones and twos every Monday through Friday. If you guys are on Twitch, so we'll make sure I plug in all his stuff at the end of this. So you guys can check out DJ Rodgee. He's doing his thing, man. He has a whole community of DJs that he's working with. And of course, Tyrone and his wife Ashton have a podcast called It's Necessary. And I'm going to talk about that last episode that they just put out. If y'all are already not fans, you need to, because this brother and his wife are doing it. They are killing the game. So mass shout out to Mr. and Mrs. We Fit Sports. And shout out to Ashton for launching that website. So shout out to you, Ma. And this is for all the homies and everybody that's doing their thing, man. Positivity of the mind. Shout out to you guys, man. So I'll pour one up for y'all. But we're going to talk about Dr. Dre's The Chronic. So I'm going to run down some credits here real quick. So Dr. Dre's The Chronic released on December 15th of 1992. Mm-hmm. So the Chronic, the word or the phrase The Chronic basically means high-grade marijuana or weed, Mary Jane, whatever you call it from wherever you're from. But when I was growing up, it was called reefer when I was growing up, but that's what we called it. And then if you look at the album cover, it's a depiction of zigzags. So if you all know about zigzags, the rolling paper to roll up your weed or whatever you have, Dr. Dre took that image and put himself on there, and that's where the album cover comes from. So it was 3 times platinum, nominated for 2 Grammy Awards. It got 1 Grammy award win for the song Let Me Ride, which I think won for Best Rap Solo Performance or something like that. The Chronic is also a 5-mic album, which means a certified classic from The Source magazine. But there's some controversy about that. I'm going to talk about that towards the end of this podcast so you guys have a little bit of context of it kind of started the East and West Coast beef before Biggie and Pac got even made it popular. So I'll talk about the premise of that at the end of this. And then the last thing I want to mention is in 2020, The Chronic was inducted into Library of Congress for its cultural and historical significance to music. So that is something else that's a huge thing in his contributions to music. Lots of hits off The Chronic. We all know about Nothing But a G Thing, Dre Day, Let Me Ride, Little Ghetto Boy. What was it? Another one I like is in the beginning of it. I can't think of the name of it. I got
for Dre Day.
Dre Day is on there, but I'm trying to think. There's something else I like too. I think it was Lyrical Gangbang. I like that one.
The day the niggas took over.
Yeah, the day the niggas took over. Yeah, man.
Bitches ain't shit.
Yeah, pretty much the whole album, right? Let's just keep it real. Pretty much the whole album is a classic. But before we get started, Rodgee, I'm gonna need you to introduce yourself one more time to the audience, and when and how did you fall in love with hip hop?
Yeah, man. What up, man? This is Rodgee, man. I go by OG Rodgee on Twitch. Man, I've been listening to hip hop since I could break dance, man. Beat Street, Wild Style, Crush Groove, right? Like these are all the my references to the history of hip hop and growing up to it, right? These are the things that I watched growing up as a kid, and I could remember watching somebody in elementary. He must have been in high school, man. This guy did the moonwalk across like 10 school benches, and it looked so flawless. I was like, wow, that guy looks like he's floating. And I was like, what is that? And so I found out that was breakdancing. And then from that, I found out there was rap music or hip hop music, right? And so I started listening to hip hop in that way. But the moment I actually said, man, hip hop is my life, I want whatever it is, I want to be part of it, was when I heard the record by Gangstar called Manifest. Right? When I heard that album and I heard the Guru's voice and the production by Premier and then the words and the meaning behind the song about, the words that I manifest, right? Like it was so powerful to me. I was just like, man, like there's something great about this. And so for me, it was that moment that really said, you know what I want to be involved with hip hop. I don't know how, whether I want to be a rapper or something, right? But I got to be part of it somehow.
Yeah, that's dope, man. Shout out to Guru, rest in peace. DJ Premier, an exceptional producer who we talked about in the Gangstar episode, which kicked off the season, which ironically, you bring it up, that's how we're closing the season, right? That's how crazy how the circle of life happens, man. Like, it's so bug how you're bringing it up right now. But, so thank you, Rodgee, spending time with us. And Rodgee, I think there's somebody at your door. Man, you got somebody at your door or something like that at your house?
Someone at my door?
Yeah, somebody at your door?
Nah.
You know who it is, man? I thought it was somebody at your door, man. You sure?
I don't know, man.
Oh, it's these nuts.
Yeah, had to get them. Hey,
that song epic, man. That song is epic.
These nuts, baby.
Yo, man.
That's all about the Chronic, man. The Chronic that's where that whole phrase comes from. You know what I mean? I remember bugging out with that when I was little. I think me and Rodgee in the same age bracket, and I remember saying that phrase like when it came out to all my homeboys. It was like an inside joke, man. So Rodgee, I had to get you, homeboy. I had to get you, man.
No, you know what though? To be real, man, like so these nuts, not just for our generation, but growing up as a kid, my dad playing like Richard Pryor records, Rudy Ray Morton, Dolomite, that whole Chestnut thing is that Dre put in this album. That's these nuts. That's
sound bites in there. Yes, sir.
Those sound bites. And so when I heard that in the Chronic, I was like, oh wow, he just brought me back from my childhood, because you don't hear that anywhere else. I didn't hear that in any other records. No. But he brought back a piece of my history growing up as a kid with my father and him, listening to that at home. And when I heard that, man, I fell out laughing like, oh.
Yo, I had to come with it one time, man, because when you hear Snoop Dogg talking about it, and I think there's an actual song or a skit called These Nuts that's on the actual album itself, man. So they just bucking out, having fun, man. But let's start the conversation, gentlemen. So once again, thank you both for coming on and ending out season 2 with me, man. Like, this has been a great ride. 16 weeks in a row of podcasting episodes, and culminating event is Dr. Dre The Chronic. So I could not have done this by myself. So shout out to everybody that I mentioned last week in the season finale. But we got one more album to talk about, and that's The Chronic. And which brings me to my first question. I'm going to pass the mic over to Tyrone first. My good homeboy, Mr. We Fit Sports in the building. Tyrone, we're talking about the Chronic album, and what do you think the importance of it is to hip hop?
I think it's really important, man, because I think on The Chronic, he exemplified to basically speak your mind, bro, and don't worry about what people got to say. And in one of his songs, he said, "You brought the smoke to me, so it's only right I bring it back." You know what I mean? So it's like he made it okay for you to speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself, because in '92, you got to think it was a lot going on, and a lot of people wasn't speaking out. But in this album right here, he made it cool to speak your mind and stand on what you say. So this album definitely, and especially in where he was talking about what the day the niggas took over, like, bro, that's 2020, bro. Like that's 2020. Like it's full circle. Yeah. So I mean, you can already tell he was ahead of his time, bro, because even when I was younger, these nuts was still, so he made it cool to perfect your craft, but have fun in it and stand on what you say. So it hit hard.
Yeah, definitely, man. What I would also say was so the Chronic came out in late '92. You know, if you think about when it was produced, you know, we had the LA riots. It was so many things that was going on in '92. But out of all of that chaoticness, this beautiful piece of art, the Chronic, came like out of the nowhere. You know, it started out with nothing but a G thing. So when you hear that for the first time, you know, and this is gonna go to you, Rodgee. When you hear a G thing for the first time, you're like, whoa. It almost like stopped in your tracks, like, what is this? Like, this is so funky. Not funky, but funky. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it just hits you, man. So Rodgee, what do you think about that, brother? Like, what do you think about the significance is to the Chronic to hip hop?
Well, look, I'm gonna piggyback off of, you know, the day we took over, right? I'm gonna reference it that way, right? Man, first of all, yeah, the nothing but a G thing, that Leon sample,
Yeah.
crazy, right? Like, it was just one of those things. But when I first heard it, I was like, wow, like, I live in LA. We lived those LA riots, and this was a reminder of, like, you know, this is pretty much his freshman album, you could say, as a solo artist, right? So when he came out with that, and was like, I was like, wow, he's really saying, fuck everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you how it is. And if we take over this, guess what's gonna happen, right? So I was listening to it, and, you know, I was like, wow, that's real. Like, I love it. Like, you know, but what was more powerful though was the song ends and goes right into nothing but a G thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what it did is it reminded us, man, this is just what it is, man. You know, this is how it is. We're just gonna barbecue, drink, and have fun and enjoy the summer. That's kind of how the song played out for me. Summertime, nothing but a G thing came out, and we were like, you know what, all good, man. You know, and that's how the album came off, because the way the Chronic starts off, it starts off with a bunch of fuck yous and this and that and dissing Tim Dog and whoop-de-woo, right?
Yeah.
It started off like that. 3-4 songs later, we're at a nothing but a G thing, and you know what? And we're just like, you know, this is what it is. These nuts and this. It just became more fun, right?
Yep.
So for me, that significance was like it was able to take down the anger and the hatred and be mad, and just say, you know what, you're right. It ain't anything but a G thing.
Yeah,
that's
man.
it.
Yeah,
that's
man.
how I took it. Being from the West Coast, being from LA.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Which brings me to my next point. You know, what was the significance of that album for the West Coast? Now, mind you, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm from the South, so I didn't know. Back in the day, all I had was MTV and radio. So I didn't live in LA when it dropped. So what was it like? You know what I mean? What was it like for you, Rodgee, when you were growing up and this album drops? You know what I mean? What was the West Coast reaction to this?
I was like, thank you, man. Like, I was like, thank you. A major label was like, we're going to put this out. And it felt like you put it out how you want to put it out, as opposed to like, we're going to tell you how to put it out. It felt like, this is you know what, you do what you got to do. You're Dr. Dre, put it out how you want to put it out. So that's how it felt. So for me, being from LA, it painted a picture of exactly how it was for us at the time. You know, with the lowriders and the barbecues and going to the park. And, you know, that park is a place I've actually gone and had a barbecue at. Like, you know, like it was real. For me, it was like refreshing. But I think, to be honest, the other part of it that was really, really important was the introduction of Snoop. Because this really kind of was like a Snoop Dogg album, even though it was Dr. Dre's freshman album, right? Yeah. And I don't think it would have been the same without Snoop. Because without Snoop, you probably wouldn't have had Nate. You probably wouldn't have had the Dog Pound. You wouldn't have had all these other artists that made this album what it is. They did what Motown did, is they put everybody in the same room, and whatever sounded the best, everyone collectively said, man, that's the one, that's the one, that's the one. That's what Motown did back in the days. A bunch of musicians got together and made a great album. That's why music was so good. So that's the reason why the Chronic, I think, was so good. And so for Dr. Dre to come out and start saying, you know what, I'm going to put my dues on Snoop Dogg and all these other people. I was already waiting for Snoop to come out because of Deep Cover.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, we got an LA cat coming out who just got recognized in The Source, which is always, from that point before that, was all East Coast artists. And this is Snoop, the very first artist on The Source. This is our hip hop Bible, basically.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
To say, yo, this dude here, Mr. Snoop Eastwood, and, you know, yo, I was like, yo, man, I can't wait for Snoop to come out with his album. And instead, Dre came out with Snoop.
Right.
So that was the real introduction, man. And man, it wasn't even sprinkled, man. It was his album. He was in the album.
Yeah,
you know.
But to your point, you know, when I did the Snoop Dogg episode, so shout out to Johnny TGV and Nick Gibbs when we did Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, to me, is the most anticipated MC to ever come out in hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much buzz about Snoop, and didn't even drop an album yet till 94, man. Like, I mean, well, late 93, my bad. It was November 93 when his album dropped, but he did deep cover. He pretty much wrote like all the lyrics, or ghost writ all the lyrics on The Chronic. So he had a huge influence. But to your point, man, the brother didn't even drop an album, and everybody in the world knew who Snoop Dogg was, man. Like, everybody, bro. You know what I mean? Like, and then to your point, you know, and it was the spark of Death Row Records wouldn't be where they were if it wasn't for The Chronic. Like, The Chronic was like the starting point for everything that happened afterwards. I mean, RBX, Lady of Rage, the Dog Pound you mentioned,
Jewel.
DLC.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
all of
like,
them.
Yeah, all the great
The East Siders, and even later on, right? The East Siders.
Yep, no doubt, man, no doubt.
Even though NWA set the pathway, right? But The Chronic actually opened up the doors for what is the West Coast sound, the G-Funk era, right?
Yeah, all G-Funk.
Warren G produced majority, I would say, of this album, right?
Yeah.
That sound is what pretty much said this is the West Coast sound, that funk.
Fire.
Yeah.
Right.
Fire sound.
So this is the album that actually birthed that. Even though like you had EPMD and people like that were doing that funk sound, this is the one where people were like, yo, and then we got an MC like Snoop that's crushing it on the source.
Man.
That's when you knew, like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
The West has arrived.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. So, which brings me to another point. So, when we're talking about the Chronic album, you know, I listened to it a lot this past week, and it brought back a lot of good memories. But if you listen to it closely, and this is gonna be for you, my homeboy Tyrone. When you listen to it closely, there's a lot of hidden messaging in there as well, too. So, I want to get your opinion about that, especially on Snoop and Dre when they're talking about the song "Little Ghetto Boy." And when I heard that song, Tyrone, I thought about you. I don't know why, but I thought about, I think this is something that Tyrone could probably relate to in his life, like being the little ghetto boy and going through the hood and seeing everything around him happen. So what do you think about the hidden messages within the album, Tyrone?
It's one of them ones where I think we all can relate. Like, you can be in the midst of all that craziness. It's just like what DJ Ron said, like, look, even though we in the midst of, I'm gonna give you all this, but I'm gonna back it up with this. It's gonna be all right. Ain't nothing but a G thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, every day you in the midst of it, but you have to keep that mind frame. Like, hey, yes, I'm here, but you got to know how to move. You got to know what to do. You got to know who to hang with. You got to know who to go to for problems. And a lot of people go to the wrong people. And that's like in this album, he even drops back and tells people, like, look, if you don't like me, that's okay. You don't have to like me, but you got to respect me.
Yeah.
And I think and it's coming from the West Coast, you have to have that attitude. Like, you know what I'm saying? The hidden message in this is you can still perfect your craft, but you can also have fun. You know what I mean? A lot of people try to go by the book so much, and you're trying to be like the whole industry. And Dre said, no, I'm going to drop how I want, when I want, and put what I want on here. So these nuts, and y'all run with it and take it how you want to take it. So
yeah, man.
Fire,
That's spot on, man. Like, I just know why. Like, when I was listening to that this week, even today, I ran it back one more time. I was like, man, yo, this reminds me of Tyrone. Like, I could just, not saying that you would be in that predicament, T, but I'm just thinking, like, man, like, I could just imagine, you living in, when we've had conversations, man to man about your circumstances coming up, and, the way I grew up in Atlanta, and it don't matter, man. To me, all ghettos are the same. They just feel a little bit different, you know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody, one ghetto was worse than the other, or, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's all that kind of same tale, but I like the way that Snoop delivered the message on there, talking to his homeboy in jail, you know what I mean? Like, it's perfection. It really is hip hop perfection, but it also goes back to what you mentioned, Rodgee. Snoop's his pen game was, oh man, and the brother could freestyle. Oh my God, the brother could freestyle. Like, man, like freestyle was a lost art, and this brother pretty much freestyled half, or not more than half, most of Doggy Style, which came out a year after. So that's gonna bring me to my last question. This is gonna be a toughie, you guys. So I put out a poll question this week about Doggy Style versus The Chronic. So the question goes, The Chronic is greater than Doggy Style, true or false? So Rodgee, true or false? The Chronic is greater than Doggy Style.
Wow, that's a loaded question. Just because since The Chronic was such a staple, such a trend-setting album. It meant so much for the West Coast and bringing out, that feel of what the West Coast was, because all those hidden messages and the language and all that stuff was all the street mentality in LA, in the little ghetto, right? No, that was all that messaging was from out here. So it was a voice that let the world know that we're cool. We like having fun, even though we're living through all of this, right? So it was very, very important that way. But man, when Snoop came out, when he came out with that, it was like The Chronic with all the barbecue seasoning and the barbecue sauce on top of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. They just added everything to it, man. Like, it was just, all right, Snoop was the first one out the gate. You know what? Everyone pitch in. We're gonna make this the greatest album in history. And man, to this day, it knocks, man. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody can touch Snoop on that album. When you talk about freshman albums, I think about that album. Yeah. And I think about Illmatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freshman albums.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. But and you know what? No, make it so bugged up, Rodgee, is like whichever one you choose, Dre's still winning because he produced them both, right? So it don't really matter which one you pick. Dre's still winning. But T, I want to get your opinion about this as well, too, my brother. So the question again is: The Chronic is greater than Doggy Style, true or false? Which side of the coin are you on?
I mean, it's just like what you said, bro. Either way, they both winning. You know what I'm saying? Like,
y'all being neutral, man.
for me to answer that, bro, I'm not worthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dre made Snoop fire and Snoop made Dre fire, bro. Yeah. So it was like one of them ones. Like, yeah. It's a two-deal package. When you speak Snoop name, you're gonna say something about Dre, and that was just vice versa, bro. So they both made each other, and they pushed each other to be the top of the pinnacle in the industry, man.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. That's a bold statement for sure.
Well, my pick was Doggy Style, and here's the reason why, though, because if you were to, mind you, leading up to the week, getting ready for the show and everything, I'm listening to Chronic the entire week. But I kind of feel, and I don't know about how you feel about this, Rodgee, I feel like it kind of tapers off at the second or the back half of the album a little bit. Doggy Style is one of those where it's, for me, front to back,
banger after banger. No, I agree. I agree. The Chronic, we were so invested in the way it started, for sure, and then he goes into like the $20 sack pyramid, right?
Yeah. Start doing skits.
Yeah, and start doing the skits. I mean, the skits are cool, but I'm talking about like musicality wise, sonically. Like I feel like it kind of tapers off. Whereas Doggy Style is, dude, it's.
I think what it was is that I think there was a lot of songs that were shelved, right, or redone. Like Rat-a-tat-tat was one of them, I think, right, and all that. Right. So I think they knew what the first half of the album was going to be from what it sounds like. It sounded like the first album. Look, these are all the album cuts, and they top loaded it, right?
Right.
In the second half of the album, I felt like it was, are we going to put this song or that one? Are we going to redo this beat? Or so it was probably more of that as opposed to Snoop's album. It was just out the gate, everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because the what you have to remember is Dre wasn't really a writer like that.
Yeah. Right.
So for you to write banger after banger after banger and not be a writer is a little bit more difficult than it is for someone like Snoop, who is a writer.
Right.
Because he can write hit after hit after hit after hit, and the production is going to be there no matter what. Because Dre's production is solid all the way through, right?
All the way. Yep.
So when the writing is immaculate, and you put that on top of all those fire beats, it's going to be automatic that Snoop's album will be better. And that's probably why, probably Dre ran out of things to say. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
No, I feel you, man. And the reason why I bring this up, gentlemen, is because when we're talking about classic albums in hip hop, you got, well, to your point, Rodgee, I was a huge fan, still am a huge fan of the Source magazine. The Source magazine was my Bible. Mm-hmm. So the Source magazine has given out 45 albums with the coveted 5 mic title. However, when The Chronic came out and Doggy Style came out, they did not give 5 mics, but Illmatic got 5 mics. So that is why the East and West Coast controversy started with that, because the West Coast was pissed off that they just made this immaculate album, Doggy Style, that did not get 5 mics. But here comes Nas right out the gate. He's from the East Coast, he gets a 5 mic rating and we don't. So that's kind of where like the seed was planted. And then of course, that's kind of where the seed was planted where, Big and Pac got into it. But that was where the seed kind of started. They felt highly disrespected that here they made these classic albums. They sold all these. Snoop Dogg sold 11 million albums. And they were like, yo, we don't get no respect. Y'all not giving us 5 mics, a classic rating where Nas gets 5 mics and he from the East Coast. Like, that's kind of where it all starts, man. So, and I'm bringing it up because, of course, to me, my personal opinion, I think the greatest album of all of hip hop is Illmatic. But Doggy Style's up there in the top 5. The Chronic will be up there in the top 10. I mean, there's excellent albums out there, but I said, that's my personal opinion. But
you're absolutely right though, and I seen that post, man.
Yeah.
And the major reason why the Illmatic is probably the best hip hop album of all time is because he had all the best producers in the game.
Yes.
He had all the best producers in the game, and he's one of the best writers in the game.
Yeah.
So when you go in there and you go on Premiere, give me your best beat. Large Pro, give me your best beat. Like when you're going to the top dudes and getting their best beat and then putting the bars on top of it. I mean, there's no denying it. Snoop didn't have that many producers to help him out with that.
Yeah, but I think he had the producer. I think
absolutely.
At that time in hip hop, like we're talking about 92, 93, maybe even half of 94. That was all ruled by the West Coast. I need everybody to understand this, man. Like if you grew up in any time during that era, all you heard was Snoop Dogg, Dre, the Dogg Pound. They ruled hip hop from 1992 to mid 94.
Because they had the sound. They owned the sound.
Yes. And matter of fact, to your point, Rodgee, Warren G dropped Regulate during that time too, which is another dope ass album. Like they ruled, the West Coast ruled that time period in hip hop. And I can see how that felt some type of way or disrespected. Like here we are dropping a classic, if not just as good as Illmatic, but why does Illmatic get 5 mics? Why? Because he's from the East Coast. Like it was like that. It was like I said, a small seed that was planted. And then, of course, what ended up happening, what happened, and we know the story between the East and West Coast beef. But I wanted to bring that up as a controversy. And then they went back. So what did the source do, Rodgee? They went back, right? They went back in time retroactively in 2000.
And they started giving albums 5 mics.
Albums 5 mics. Well, why didn't you give them 5 mics when it first came out? You knew they had a classic on your hands. Just give it to them. So
yeah, that's a huge conversation because the media has always plays a huge part, even though the source was written by a lot of us, but there was still a lot of white writers and that were writing for the source, and a lot of credible people, from the Ryans Fords to the Soren Bakers to the different people that were writing for all these different magazines. The fact is that the East Coast always had an upper hand just because people say that's where it was born. I argue that because we had a lot of hip hop out in the West Coast way before, like a Too Short.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Early 80s, right? Like we had music out here. It just wasn't as popular because radio and these magazines were all coming out the East Coast, and they were putting that up on the map because that's what they knew. Right?
Yeah.
So, that's why when you go to the source and these hip hop quotables are all from the East Coast, except for Snoop in 93, and then I believe Cube right after that, and then it went right back to the East Coast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be lopsided. You know what I'm saying? So,
no, I definitely agree. T, what you think about that, man? Like, I know it might be a little bit before you, but that's all right. You still have an opinion. Your voice still needs to be heard, my dude. Your voice still needs to be heard. So I bring this up because, we're talking about classic albums, and, that is kind of like, the straw that kind of started everything with the East and West Coast beef. But not asking you to choose sides, but what is your take on this, man? Like, this is like, we're talking about like the start of the entire East-West controversy is with those, and it's all about music. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't understand it, dude.
But imagine if those writers would have kept it real and gave credit where credit was supposed to do. Our history would be totally different. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just because a writer hated on somebody, the East Coast writer probably like, okay, we got a new guy coming out, probably caught wind of it. Because the West was ruling at that time. Yeah. So you never know. It could be deeper where they're like, we got to get the focus back over here. So let's drop this. Then Nas dropped right after. Yeah. And then it got hot. You know what I mean? So then the fact, like y'all said, the source goes back and try to give credit where credit, but it's too late now.
It's too late. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that one thing, like, and that lets us know that music is bigger than we ever know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Music has a bigger impact in our communities than we know. Like, and I don't think some of those writers knew that back then.
No question.
Rob, but you have to remember too, man, like during that time that the West Coast was running game, the East Coast had Daz Effects with Fushnikins, Gangstar, you had like Arrested Development. There was this sound that was, not the typical, Nas type sound, even though that was out, but it was more of that party vibe, right? More of that, party vibe sound. And it wasn't as much of a penmanship game as it was earlier on, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. I would definitely agree. I think Nas to me, so people get pissed off when I say that Illmatic saved New York hip hop, because that's what I truly believe. You know what I mean? Because to me, if it wasn't for Illmatic, the West Coast would have been ruling for years and years and years. Not to say there was a war against each other, but unless Illmatic comes out, I think there would have been a different. The East Coast would have had to find someone as like the savior of the sound, or the savior for East Coast hip hop. And if not Nas, it would have been Notorious B.I.G. It would have been one of them two that would have essentially saved the East Coast in a sense. But man, brothers, we could talk about this all day long. We have had a great conversation, a great way to end our season. But gentlemen, we got to start wrapping things up. And as in true season 2 fashion, we have been giving a hooded salute to Trayvon Martin. So I'm going to put our hoods on one last time for the season, to all of those that have lost their life due to social injustice. And I'm going to talk about that in the last one here, because, one of the things that Tyrone and Ashton talk about in their podcast, it was called It's Necessary. They have an episode out there that you all need to go and listen to right now called This Is America. And I'm going to let it speak for itself. I won't even dive into it, but I need you guys to hear that conversation that they had between them, because it's a very, very eye-opening exchange of ideas and feelings and emotions that they had. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass the mic over to the new person on the blog, DJ Rodgee. Sir, who are you shouting out this week, my good sir?
Man, you know what? Honestly, I want to shout out America, man. Because I think America needs it right now. We're going through some turmoil, through some hard times, and I think a lot of people are confused. Our leadership is not really leading the way we need to be leading. The government, there's a certain validity of a certain level of being valid of the things we believe growing up. So I really want to make sure that this goes out to just America in general, man, because we're all children of this country. You know what I'm saying? Like, people like to say, like, oh, like my mom's from Mexico, you're Mexican, this, that. But you know what? I grew up in this country with the culture, and so that makes me Americans as much as anybody else. And so I really feel like we have to go back and think about, man, like, we're just people, we're human beings, and it's all about love and good nature. And we have to be able to express that, man. And we need to spread that love throughout the country right now in a time where things are not looking good for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt, man. And Rodgee, hit the people one time with all your social media, man. Where can they find you? Your social media, whatever you got going on, and your Twitch. Drop all that stuff for the people real quick, bro.
Yeah, my main IGs, just Rodgee, RODGEE. And then my Twitch, man, I'm doing twitch.tv/OG Rodgee. And I'm on there every day, man, Monday through Friday. And then I do my oldies show where I play nothing but oldies on Friday nights, man. We just sit back, drink, and relax.
Word, man. Hey, Rodgee, salute to you, my brother. And I'm doing my best, man, to stay tuned in. I'm going to take a nice long break, but you're going to see me in there, man. You're going to definitely see the rooms. And mad love to you and your family, man. Thank you for being on board with us this week, my good sir. Passing the mic over to Mr. We Fit Sports himself, Tyrone Weaver, my dude. Who you give me a shout out to this week, homie?
America, man. Same thing. Like, it's nothing new. We've been through this before. We haven't been through it with our own eyes, but we've seen it from generations to generations. And guess what? We still standing. You know what I mean? It's just going to take some time. It's going to take some work. We'll get through the fire, but listen, keep your eyes on the prize. Families, get stronger, man. If you got a problem with somebody, just cut it. You know what I mean? Check on your people, husbands. Make sure you know where your wives and children are at all times, man. God bless America, man.
Word, man. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to your beautiful family. Can't wait to have you over so we can have a little more of that, you know what I'm saying? So, but man, my shout outs are real short, man. I just want to give a shout out to one, to hip hop music, hip hop culture. I love it. That's the reason why I'm on this podcast every single week. It's near and dear, and I want to give a shout out to my boy Wild Tuna, who I just recently met not too long ago. He does shows every week on IG Live. He's from the city of Philadelphia. Wild Tuna, you my dude, man. Mad love to you and what you're doing, pushing the culture forward. And my last shout out, just as you guys mentioned, just goes to the heart of America, American people. You know what I mean? Like just people in America in general. And we got to do better. We got a long way to go, but I'm hopeful that we do things and get back on the right track and get back to being what we used to be. Hopefully when we knock out COVID and we get the right person back in the right seat in that office, things will hopefully start getting unraveled and get back to normal. And one more last shout out goes to the guy we're showcasing today, Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre, if you ever watched this, sir, we love you. We're so glad that you were able to get healthy again from your aneurysm. Glad to have you back with us, man, because when I got wind about that, I was like, come on, 2021. Come on, man. I'm not ready for this right now, yo. So thank God for you, Dr. Dre. Thank God for your music, and thank God for your contributions to hip-hop and hip-hop music. It lives on, all right? So y'all be easy, be safe. I'll see you guys back in season 3, man, March 9th, all right? Be easy, 100. Peace and love, all right?
Y'all be safe.
All right.